ready for hot takes and insight from local industry experts in real estate, business, and lifestyle. He used to play ball with the Padres. He played hockey for the Lobos. Now they're crushing it in the real estate game. Together, they'll showcase the best of the Duke City. This is All About You, ABQ.
That's right. It's all about you, ABQ. Now, the goal of the show is to highlight the best of our city's industry experts in real estate, culture, and lifestyle so that you walk away with some value and feeling inspired. Now, the way we like to do that is to answer the questions that you may have or interview the guests that you'd like to see. So we invite you to join the conversation. You can reach out using the hashtag up here or below, or join our email list to get some timely tips about our community and real estate market. Hey, I'm Skip Adams, owner of Sold by Skip Real Estate Brokerage here in town.
Grant Harvey, Vision Mortgage.
You probably recognize Grant as the head coach of the University of New Mexico men's Lobo hockey team, but now he's absolutely just crushing it in the mortgage game.
You've seen Skip Adams on HGTV's House Hunters, and he's part of the top 2 producing real estate agents in the nation.
Thank you for that warm introduction, Grant. So great show today. Here's why you're going to want to stay tuned. Scott Jeter of New Mexico Beekeepers?
Yeah, it's going to be an unbelievable story.
Thank God we have a lot of B-roll for the show because believe me, this is going to be a good one. Yeah. We're going to talk about a story. So you'll meet Scott in the next segment, but he came to save the day. Not that I have many gentlemen in knight in shining armors, but I had this Scott came to one of our investment properties. We had an issue with bees, and so we got some crazy footage from that, and we'll show that to you. But also here's some great stories about how you met Scott because I've seen you in the beekeeper suit as well.
Yeah, I've had some bee experience, and I have random encounters in the gym is actually how I met Scott. When you get older, you just compare ailments, and so him and I traded stories and found out he was a pawn shop guy and a beekeeper, and I said, pump the brakes. I want to be a beekeeper too, and he allowed me to. So he's a fascinating guy.
In this segment, we're also going to break down the Mortgage Minute, and then stay tuned to the end of the show because everybody's favorite thing about UABQ is Skip's Tips. So Grant, tell me a little bit about your weekend, man. What have you been up to?
Yeah, so I've been trying to get my Supra running. It's been kind of dormant for 7 to 8 years. So I was wrenching on a little bit because I have ambitions of getting it back out. And this sports car used to be my thing for such a long time. And then when you just get older, you let it sit 5 or 6, 7 years. So I've got kids driving by screaming like, it's a Supra, and losing their minds. And I'm like, you know what? I need to get this thing back on the road. So I did a little race.
A lot of people don't know this about you. And when it comes to hairstyles, you talk about the Supra being a sports car, drives so fast, but your windows don't roll up. So this is actually your permanent hairstyle from sticking your head out the window doing 100 up Paseo del Norte.
Skip's had a lot of co-pilot time with me, and I have to actually give him credit that he doesn't freak out while I'm texting people and going 130.
No, Grant, you are kind of a race car driver, and I specifically remember one time I was riding in the car with you, and we were actually merging onto Paseo during traffic, and you were doing about 90 up Coors.
Standard.
And I remember just kind of doing one of these numbers in the seat, like, all right, what are we doing? And I look over at Grant, and he's down here like this, texting, and just swerving, and just like fishtails it onto Paseo. And I remember just standing there, and I just looked at him, and he goes, no, we're good. This is your first time in the car. Yeah, we're good. Just back to texting. And since then, I was like, yeah, we're good. I don't care if there's Maseratis in the road, whatever.
Well, I mean, the thing is, I give great customer service, and they shouldn't let me driving on Paseo interfere with that. So that's just a promise to you that, the customers out there that I will
answering
do the right thing.
Answering
I will
emails.
do the right thing and text and go 90. Okay, so yeah, what about your? So Skip has a Jeep that you can hear bolts flying out the hood from around the block. So it's like a horn. He's coming because the car's disassembling as he's reaching you. So how's your Jeep running?
So a lot of people drive lowriders in town, and when they hit the the speed bump, the sparks fly out. My car just has sparks flying out of the hood at all times.
He's just a 4th of July guy permanently. So you could appreciate his Jeep. Anyway, so you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to convert this somehow to a Mortgage Minute here. I want to go over this program. Specifically, it's for rural areas, and where that matters in Albuquerque and Los Lunas and Bosque Farms are actually subject to being USDA eligible. To be a USDA eligible, also you have income limits of about 91,000 or below. There's also very strict debt to income ratios. You've heard me talk about debt to income ratios. They have to be pretty low. The advantages are a lowered mortgage insurance of 1% and lowered monthly and 0 down. So this one is on par with VA loans. I'm a big believer in USDA loans, but obviously consult a mortgage consultant and they can help figure out if you're eligible, but mainly, specifically Los Lunas and Bosque Farms. So again, lower rates too, like the VA. Great product, but it does matter where you live to be eligible. So that wraps up our Mortgage Minute.
There's a lot of different programs available, whether it's a VA buyer or if you're doing a USDA loan.
Yeah.
Very nuanced, but I think that, we had a cool experience this weekend with a VA buyer in town and, doing home inspections. And, when you have a VA buyer, there's typically, VA is the only loan, correct me if I'm wrong, that requires a termite inspection. Is that
That's
right?
correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And New Mexico, side note, is one of those quirky states where the buyer is not allowed to pay for the termite inspection as the borrower. So it's not the same in every state, but this is one of those things here in New Mexico a lot of people sometimes overlook.
Yeah, the government loans are oftentimes a good product that they really take care of the borrower and they take care of themselves as they are the investor. So, a lot of times people are kind of scrutinized of government loans, but really I think the buyer is the most heavily protected and I stand by those loans. I like.
And you said also one thing that I find to be true as well is that when you have VA buyers, they come from a military background. So when it comes to gathering documents for pre-qualification or performing on contractual timelines and guidelines, what we find is that some sellers are skittish about working with these government loans or VA buyers because there's more structure, there's more regulation. But what we find is that the documents are always done on time. Typically, you can close quicker. There's stricter timelines, right? The appraisal has to be done in 10 days.
Yeah, the 10 business days, and also the rate of foreclosures is the lowest for VA loans out of any other customer. So
that's something to think about. So if you are selling a house, that's one thing to think about is, sometimes it's not just about price. It's about what type of buyer are you going to be working with to buy your house, because you want to make sure that it's a seamless transaction, right?
Yeah.
Good. Well, coming up next on the show, Scott Jeter is going to be joining us, who is a local beekeeper?
Bee guy, pawn shop guy. I now found out a cowboy enthusiast, a Dallas cowboy enthusiast. We'll still let him on the show. We actually don't have any football banner. Scott's fine with us.
So stay tuned. This is all about you, ABQ. And welcome back to UABQ. I'm Skip Adams, owner of Sold by Skip Real Estate Brokerage here in Albuquerque.
Here, Grant Harvey, Vision Mortgage.
So we got a great guest on the show today, and a little bit of a backstory. I had Grant introduced me to Scott Jeter is going to be our guest, but I had a little bit of a bee situation at one of our investment properties, and I called Grant. I go, "What do you know about bees?" He goes, "I've got the guy for you." So I want to introduce to you guys Scott Jeter, who's not only a beekeeper in town, but also owns a pawn shop. He's everything that is UABQ. So Scott, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Talk a little bit about, kind of a funny story of how we became friends, but you have a couple different businesses in town, and you've lived inside Albuquerque, outside of Albuquerque. Give us a little rundown on your backstory.
I moved here in the 2nd grade from Lubbock, Texas. So still Texan at heart, believe it or not. And we talked a little bit about that before. I used to do a little bit of the Cowboys fan show. So diehard Cowboys fan. They won this weekend, so I can talk about that. But anyway, moving on. I met Grant at the gym, and everybody knows he's Canadian, right? So he's a huge, big in nature. And we started talking about what I do for a living, and I own a pawn shop, and I got to, I do honeybee extractions, and Grant freaked out. Loved everything about it, asked a zillion questions, and he was the one guy that was like, "Can I go with you?" Everyone's like, "That sounds terrible." It's everybody's worst nightmare.
That might have been too many concussions in hockey for someone to go, I'll go run. I'll go get stung. Like, let's go in with the bees. But I happen to be such a fan of what bees do, right? I'm a gardener. I'm an environmentalist. So it goes right hand in hand. But I was like, let's dive in. I think everyone else, including Skip, goes, get me away from bees, and we'll get into his running later. But
no pun intended.
Yeah.
At all.
So what I like, and why I'm glad you're here, is we're seeing a little bit of on social media. You see a lot of beekeeper videos now out of nowhere. You look at like some of the larger podcasts in town have had beekeepers on. And you go and you can go down a rabbit hole if you're not careful, just learning so many interesting bee facts. And in the short time that we spent together, Scott, over at one of our projects, I learned so many things that I guess I never stopped to think about or even realize. But talk a little bit about, so right now we're looking at some pictures of Grant when you were in the field with Scott. There, in fact, there you go.
Yeah, look what the bees did to my nose.
Yeah,
I had to have surgery on the spot. No, in the beekeeper suit. So let me tell you my kind of testimonial to this. We're doing it primarily in the heat, right? So beekeeping and bee removals during the spring and summer, and it's pretty hot endeavors. These guys get all, Scott's been doing this so long that he has a lot of bare skin in there because he would rather be hot than be, no, he would rather be stung than be hot. So this guy would go with like very missing parts that I feel like I needed to be beekeeping. And so that's how I got introduced. And you would hear Scott going, I got stung, and he said 5 or 6 times, but I guess it has anti-inflammatory problems.
True. Yes. What he's saying is true. I've done jobs without a suit for money. I'm not gonna lie. Okay. Not just the guy that I bought the company from was my buddy Tyler, and we can get into the backstory of how I got it. But essentially, I've got arthritis in my left shoulder. I've got a torn meniscus in my left knee, and I just found out I got osteoarthritis in both my knees. And then I got 3 blown discs in my back and some called schmools. And so I have holes in my vertebrae in my spine. So I got basically a broken back. So I got arthritis everywhere. But your body's natural response to getting stung by a bee is you kick out histamines. So everybody knows the word antihistamines, Benadryl. You know what I mean? So anything that makes you swell, you got to take antihistamines. So when you get stung so often by bees, and they even have something called apitherapy, where people get stung in specific places by bees on purpose, because once your body starts developing an immunoresponse to the venom, you can only swab so many times before your body says, no, we're used to this, and we stop. And what your body is doing is saying, we don't need to put histamines in this location anymore because we're used to this, everything's fine. Arthritis is an autoimmune reaction. It's your body saying, I think that we're injured here, we need to be swollen here. So if you can trick your body into saying, I don't need to be swollen here anymore, it very much helps with arthritis.
Fascinating. Every time I've been out with Scott, he has this bee trivia, and then I go, wow, and I feel like a pretty well-read guy, but I go, so give me other bee facts.
And I don't even feel like I'm that intelligent, and I don't know a whole lot about it. As a matter of fact, when I started doing this company, it was out of pure necessity. I needed a job, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And it kind of, and if you want to get into it, I can say it literally fell into my lap. And initially I bought the company, and the first couple of weeks, even the first month, I was swollen everywhere. I was wrapped in ice packs, and I was like, oh my God, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
I was like, what have I done? But I still owed money on the company. So I was like, I just gotta suck it up, and I just gotta be tough, and I just gotta move forward. And then finally, it's like, I'm like, ow, I'm okay.
No, don't you feel like the best parts of your life, like the way you have the best stories is when you're in survival mode?
Struggle mode.
When you didn't have very many liberties, that's how you start to dive into like
it's where
cool
you learn
stuff.
about yourself.
Well, at this point, I didn't have a chance. Like, that's how I ended up working at Frito-Lay when I was 19 years old. Not that was the dream job, but I was like, these are the kind of stories that evolve into like, here's how I became who I am.
Yes, sir.
I didn't have any choices. So
you quickly learn in the hard times who you are, what you're capable of, and how far you can go, and how
hard times build
what you
hard
can take.
men. Skip.
Yeah, write that down.
That's what I'm talking about, buddy. I love it. You know what I mean? So we quote Grant's on that one.
Grant loves hard men. So here's what we can do. So when you arrived today, you were talking a little bit about how busy you've been with beekeeping, and then all of a sudden now we get into the winter. Is there a bee season? I mean,
there is, and we talked a little bit about that in the break, because this year was crazy, because I was doing jobs up until mid-October, but normally I go from I want to say mid-March to September. and it's just crazy. And I'm doing 3 extractions a day, and I'm picking up swarms all over the place. And I mean, phone's ringing off the hook. I literally drive around with a notepad during those months because I'm taking so many calls. I'm calling people the wrong name. I'm showing up at the wrong house. And I started just carrying a book with me to where I got okay. And just to keep my head straight,
Well, it's part of growing a small business. And I think that's kind of what the show is about, is UAVQ is, Grant and I, small business owners in ourselves, and, that struggle to grow and become, successful. We're a small community, and I think we all take care of each other. But the funny thing is, and we teased this at the beginning of the show, but we do have some fantastic footage of an incident. So we have an investment property just down the street here downtown. And I called Grant. I go, Grant, my tenants are getting just destroyed by bees. So we got some footage here, and Scott had put the call out to you, and within hours you showed up with so tell me a little bit about what you're doing here, what this process is.
So okay, and the bees are going crazy right here. In their defense, I'm totally pissing them off, because that is a hacksaw, and what I have to do is I've got to take a grinder and a saw, and I've actually got to get through that pony wall right there. So that wall, that's a hollow structure. So there's no, and if you look at the architecture here, there's no reason to put insulation in these pony walls that protrude from the structure. So they're hollow. So bees are coming right up in here, and you can see their entrance where they go in there, they find that, and what they do is they just start building out honeycomb. They got a queen in there. She's laying eggs. She can lay up to 5,000 eggs a day. So what we do is we use thermal imaging technology and actually some Stone Age, just drilling holes in walls and just exploratory drilling. We figure out where exactly they've got comb, so we do as little damage to your home as possible. And once we figure out exactly where they're hanging out, we got to get through that wall. So I mean, as you can imagine, if you're at home and somebody's drilling a hole in your house or come to you all, you're going to go a little bit of
stairs with a big.
And we also found out that Skip is not a slumlord because there actually was wood between the 2 pieces of stucco. That was it was a slumlord check.
No, but I think there was some good footage there, just in the fact that you see, number one, how angry the bees were, but how far away I was as the cameraman.
And how fast of a runner he's
ducked behind this car. It's like a SWAT.
This is not Vietnam footage. This is actually just Skip hiding from honeybees.
Well, literally what this footage is Skip was,
hiding out everywhere. This is me. You can't hear me. I'm actually like squealing because
you should never stick your tongue out, by the way, when there's a bee attack.
Well, what you should do, and it's exactly what Skip did, and he was right.
Cry like a baby.
He ran through the trees because they're all over your face.
When he panics, he does weird stuff. He runs into yuccas too.
Right?
No, yeah.
They were all over his head, and they're going after. And the crazy thing is, everyone's like, "Can they smell fear?" Yes, they can. Okay, if you're breathing heavily, and you seem like a predator, like you're in fight or flight mode, which Skip was.
They knew he's a predator.
Skip was,
and he has a cologne out called Fear.
Yeah, right. No kidding. He was wearing Fear all day that day, and they were. I'm seriously, they were all over him. And so this is John with me at the bottom of the ladder. He's my helper. He actually got some solid footage of Skip running up the street, begging for his life.
Yeah, Skip just threw his phone down. Yeah. Said every man for himself.
And that's it. They were 100% attracted to Skip. And he was flailing his arms like crazy, and we're like, "Stop swatting at him! Stop swatting!" And we're like, "Run into the trees," because believe it or not, the trees will kind of not necessarily camouflage you, but if they're going at you and you get in there, it's an obstacle.
Throws off their radar, right?
Throws them off. And
one thing that you told me, you guys kept yelling at me while I was down there.
Put down your baseball bat.
Yeah, totally.
Something was very counterintuitive to me, is you said, "Get in the car. Get in your car." Because the bees don't want to be in the car, they want to be outside. Mm-hmm. So if you get in the car, they'll fly out the window. I didn't really heed that advice. In fact, I just kept swatting at them.
Worst thing you do.
You're supposed to actually get in your car and play Katy Perry.
Is that true?
As loud as you can.
She's a firework? Is that
puts me to sleep, buddy.
So anyways, a fascinating story there with beekeeping. So I appreciate you coming in and at least dropping some knowledge on me. The other thing...
Let's have him name bee trivia. You were naming, like, what kind of bees are there in a beehive? Do you want to do this?
Yeah, give us the rundown. Give us the top 3 things we need to know about beehives.
There's so many things. And talk about the beehive temperature.
Well, what do you want to know? I mean, and that's the whole thing, is I didn't really... And shameless plug for my buddy Justin. So when I first jumped into this company, I have a buddy named Justin Armstrong, and he owns a company. My company's in bee removal. His is Albuquerque Hive Rental. So if you want to learn how to be a beekeeper, that's what you do. So I had 10 hives at one point, and I started giving them away. And it was actually not as easy to give them away as you think. It's like they're the puppy that nobody wants or is ready for. So I started working exclusively with Justin and giving him my bees. And his company, what he does is if you can rent a hive, he'll stick a hive in your backyard and he'll show up every 3 weeks to 4 weeks, and he'll actually take you out there and he'll explain all this to you. And he'll teach you how to keep your bees, and he keeps them healthy. So he taught me a lot about. He's like, we'd be doing something. They're sitting there and they do something called fanning.
Yes,
there we go. And if you can see them back, they're like fanning it. What they're doing is they're calling everybody in, and it's like, oh, that's the Nasnov gland, And he's an encyclopedia. He's like, did you know, the scientist with the last name Nasnov is the guy that found this gland? And I'm like, I don't care, dude. I've been stung in my guts like 6 times. I just want to go home. But he taught me a lot about beekeeping because he is a beekeeper. What I was doing is I was just trying to make money doing extractions.
Yeah, you were surviving, and now you. So here's one fact that I learned from him is that bees are one of their jobs, and there's a group of them that fans the hive to keep it cool. And when you take out the honeycomb, it actually will start melting in your hand because it's not cool anymore. And so the bees actually keep the hive intact from the temperature. And then they're antimicrobial
honey is antimicrobial. I mean, you can actually you can wipe it on a cut and it will act. It's a natural antiseptic.
That's just
there's a lot of interesting things. So
honey, right? You can't move later.
And it sounds crazy, but I mean, like there are women out there that pay a lot of money for a natural honey and oatmeal and not even kidding, So there are a lot of different products that they make, and that's legit. Like women will take facials from the honey. I mean, people get apitherapy in their knees. The different types of bees is, you obviously have a queen and you have drones, which are the males, and they only have one job, mate with queens, right? So believe it or not, they kill them at a certain time of the year. All the ladies kill the men because now all they're doing is hanging out and using resources. So if you're just hanging out and sitting on your couch,
deadbeat
and you're a male guys, they don't put up with deadbeats. Not for say they will kill them, drag them outside. They keep the colonies very clean, and you're right. It is climate controlled in there. They control the temperature because the way that they make honey is they pull in nectar from plants, and they raise the temperature, and they evaporate the water content, and that's all honey is much stickier nectar. So
we'll talk about when they want to relocate with the possibility of bringing, right? So they find it. There's scout bees, right? And they
absolutely
and they try to find other homes and then tell about the.
Well, the way that they reproduce, and replicate is that either an old queen or a new queen will leave an existing colony. And when she leaves, she takes, 10 to 12,000 of the workers with her. And if you ever see it just hanging out in a tree, and this happens all the time, and I do want to say this, do not kill those bees, guys. I can't tell you how many times I show up and somebody's dumped 3 cans of Raid on a big ball of bees, and it looks like a basketball or a football hanging out in a tree. That is when they are the least dangerous. I mean, I catch these things with no suit on just to show the public in Albuquerque how safe they are when they're in a swarm state. And that's what a swarm of bees is. It's a big ball of bees, 10, 12,000 bees, protecting a queen while scouts go out and find, let's say, Skip's house.
My porch,
you know what I mean?
Skip's feet.
And then they come back and they do a little dance, and if they impress the queen and they're convinced that, hey, yeah, we found a solid property for us to move into, they all just take off at once and they go and they travel, and they'll just slap themselves on the side of the wall and they slowly crawl in, and boom, there you go. You got a new colony, and they just start, and they build honeycomb and laying eggs.
The queen is if the queen can fit in this hole, then
one-eighth of an inch. That's it. Yeah. That's all they need. That's a tiny little opening.
What was another fact that I learned from you about how many bees are in your typical colony?
Skip is afraid of bees.
Fear is his favorite.
Typically 40, 60,000.
60,000.
So you'll see them coming in and out of the wall, and you think, okay, I've got a bee problem. I'm going to spray a little bit of Raid up there. And again, stop doing this, guys. It's not going to solve your problem. You got 60,000 behind the wall that are protected by that structure that you can't get to. All you're doing is making them sick. You're destroying the honey.
I don't want to pretend. I always act like pretend everyone knows nothing about. In this instance, bees, they're so essential. And I guess I don't want to give the first lesson ever about pollination and such. But like without the bees, we die.
We're all dead. Yeah. I mean, I think you're gonna get like certain grains and some nuts, but there would not be enough of a food supply on this planet to sustain our population. No, without bees, we're dead.
So what I enjoyed about this, other than a philanthropic move, is to actually have something mutually beneficial. He makes a little bit of money, and man, what a feel-good job you have.
Well, it hurts. I'm not gonna lie. It doesn't feel good at all.
Well, yeah, that's very clever.
Just to wrap up, when you're talking about bees and bee removal, one thing that I found fascinating is that, like he said, when the beekeeper comes or the bee removal company comes, it's not that they come and just nuke the hive with rape. They actually come and they extract it, and then they rehome it into, in this case, it was the valley. I think you took them out to
North
a nice
Valley,
big,
my buddy John.
yeah, North Valley.
And the other important thing, I'm an allergy sufferer, right? I'm completely just stay indoors in a bubble for 2 months when these happen. But when they harvest the honeycombs, they actually do some honey specific to zip codes, right? Then you can become acclimated to certain pollen through honey ingestion to help your allergy problems.
100%.
And so, yeah, good. So that there's some hope for you allergy sufferers. I'm a big Claritin D guy, and I, wash my face and hair 82 times, and I still do. But I think the honey is the remedy. So, look, man, we could go on forever because I am such a bee enthusiast. But you've been a great guest, and maybe next time we'll talk about the Dallas Cowboys somehow.
Yeah, right. I'm always down for that, man.
So again, if you need anything bee related, if you want to learn more about bees, visit the website, New Mexico Bee.
NMBeeremoval.com. That'll get you to my website, and it's got my cell phone number on there.
It's important to know you can't remove these on your own. Like the way you think you ought to remove bees, please don't do it. I mean, you'll enjoy the way he does it, and it's painless for everybody except for his cat.
Coming up in the last part of our show, everybody's favorite. I know that's why you're tuned in at home. So strap in and get ready. It's time for Skip's Tips. Such a warm introduction today. Skip's Tips. Skip's Tips are anything that saves us time, makes us more money, or just allows us to have more fun, whether it's in real life or real estate. So Skip's Tips today for all of those newbie home buyers, first-time home buyers, we're going to talk about Real Estate Lingo 101. So if you're getting into the real estate game, you may have some questions about just some of the basic stuff. So we're going to run through the top 5 things that, first-time home buyers or newbies have questions about. Whether we're talking about MLS or DOM, these are some things that can be confusing, right? So let's break it down. First things first is earnest money. So what is earnest money? Well, earnest money is the buyer's basically security deposit that they put down. It's their skin in the game that tells the seller that I'm a viable buyer and I'm committed to this transaction. So that money's held in a third-party escrow account. Next thing we'll do is talk about equity. So many times when you're analyzing real estate deals, whether it's your first time home purchase or an investment property, you're trying to figure out equity, right? How much equity am I going to have in the home? And the equity is nothing more than the amount of loan balance subtracted from the value of the property. So that's the equity of the home. The next thing is escrow. So many times you hear, no, our money's in escrow, or we're in escrow right now. Well, what the hell does that mean? Well, escrow is nothing more than a third-party company that helps facilitate the transaction. In New Mexico, we use title companies to act as the escrow company. They'll hold the earnest money deposit in basically a third-party account. So once the buyer makes that earnest money deposit, now our money is in escrow. So that's what escrow means. Number 4, seller's market. What is a seller's market? As a buyer, if you're trying to get into a real estate to do investing and people keep telling you, no, we're in a seller's market. Well, what does that mean? That's just basically when the demand far outweighs the supply. So there's more buyers than there are homes available. So the scale tips towards the seller. It's a seller's market. And the last thing is closing costs. What the heck are closing costs? Well, aside from the down payment and the earnest money, you have closing costs, which can be anywhere from 2 to 3% of the purchase price of the home. And that's prepaid mortgage interest, taxes, sometimes insurance, appraisal, stuff like that. So closing costs, make sure you have some closing costs budgeted for each purchase. So either way, that's my Skip's Tips.
Again, love bees. So interesting. We could go on, and I think we'll do another segment one time or another show about his other endeavor, pawn shops. But yeah,
Pawn Stars, we'll do our own little episode. So again, thank you to our guest, Scott Jeter, for showing up and really delivering some knowledge about bees and everything Albuquerque. Because at the end of the day, this is all about you, ABQ.